Amen. All right, we'll be at 6:48.
Okay, we're going to continue with the Hilchos Tefillin, and we left off the last time we left off about the hafsekim that you're allowed to have in between Shal Yad and Shal Rosh, and then the last halacha was about how to wear the tefillin Shal Rosh, that it should be covered but not completely covered. The next halacha is lahamtin letfillin kishehischal aminyan lehispalon. If somebody is waiting for his tefillin, and in the meantime the minyan is getting started to daven, what do you do? Basically, what's the question? Do you daven with a minyan without tefillin and put on tefillin afterwards, or is it better off? The minyan is starting to daven. You don't daven with the minyan. Wait till you get your tefillin and then daven. Which way do you do? So Adam she'ein lo tefillin lehispalel behen, a person who doesn't have a pair of tefillin to daven with, v'hischil haminyan lehispalel, and the minyan started davening. So what do you do? So adif sheyamtin letefillin, it's best to wait until you get a pair of tefillin, and then v'yispalel v'yikar kriyas shema im hatefillin, and then you can daven and say Shema with tefillin, v'yikabel olav malchus shamayim shleima, and then you have the ability to accept el malchus shamayim shleima. What does it mean, shleima? You complete a complete yoke of Hashem, and the way you accept it completely is when you have the tefillin on when you're doing that. You're not just saying the Shema, but you're saying the Shema with the tefillin on as well. Me'asher, this is the better alternative then, sheyispalel l'matzibur, better than davening with the minyan, because the minyan is starting, so you're going to start l'lo tefillin, and you're going to be davening without tefillin because you have no tefillin. Because what's going to happen then? Yoid edus sheker be'oimroi ukshartim la'is al yadecha. What will be basically happening is you will be saying ukshartim la'is al yadecha in tefillin, which means that you're to tie the tefillin on your hands with a knot and put it between your eyes. You're saying that, but you're not doing that. So the halacha is that it's best not to daven with the minyan. Wait till you get your tefillin, and then when you get your tefillin, you'll daven without the minyan. Obviously, you have the opportunity while the minyan is davening to answer the amens, to say the baruch Hu, to say kedusha, but the davening itself, you should wait until you get your tefillin.
If let's say a person waiting for tefillin starting to make a rock of milk.
Hold on, let's go on a little further. Im choshesh, what if he's concerned? Sha'at she'yimtza tefillin yaver zman kriyas shema, that until he will get the tefillin yaver zman kriyas shema, the zman of kriyas shema will pass. So you tell him to wait for the tefillin so that he can say Kriyas Shema with tefillin, but in the meantime, if he's going to wait for the tefillin to say Kriyas Shema, this man of Kriyas Shema is going to pass, so you're going to miss. So what should you do? So under those circumstances, Yikra Kriyas Shema le'lo tefillin, say the Shema without tefillin, although, and we talked about this earlier, although it's best to say the Kriyas Shema with tefillin, davening with tefillin. But even though you're davening without the tefillin, since you're going to, since you're, in this case, you're better off to daven with the tefillin, so you shouldn't be made edus sheker. I say that, even though you could be later on putting on with tefillin. In other words, technically what you can really do is you can daven with the minyan, and then afterwards, when you get your tefillin, you can say the Shema again in tefillin. It's just like we talked about earlier, if you remember, we talked about that there was an issue as to whether if you say you're davening and whatever time you're davening, you're davening 10 o'clock. By the time 10 o'clock comes around, sometime during the year, that's past the Zman Kriyas Shema. So what do? We say Kriyas Shema earlier, before we daven. The first thing in the morning, you say Barachas and you say Shema. But when you say the Shema, we talked about once upon a time, it was a custom that everybody put on tefillin to say the Shema. So you shouldn't be made Eid Sheker. You shouldn't. Once upon a time, people did. People were careful with it. Once upon a time. But then the Rebbe spoke at a Sicha. Remember, that's what I pointed out.
Not everybody did it. It wasn't like that.
No. Well, I said that we did that. The Rebbe came along and said that you don't have to do that. That's what I said. Right. Assuming that that's the right thing to do. But then the Rebbe spoke a Sicha and said that it's not necessary. So at that point, once the Rebbe said that, it became, some people still continued because they were used to it, so they did it, but it became a thing. I remember personally, up until then I did, and then the Rebbe spoke about it, so I didn't do it anymore. But, so again, back to this, and the reason is, you're putting on film, you're saying Kriyas Shema and you don't have tefillin, so it's like Meyud Eidu Sheker. You're testifying falsely. You're saying but you're not wearing tefillin. So the Rebbe explains that it's not a problem because you are saying the Shema later with the tefillin on. So now it's not the time of davening, so you're not wearing the tefillin. It doesn't mean every time you say Shema you're wearing tefillin. But so over here we say that don't daven with the minyan. Because better wait till you have your tefillin. Because if you're going to daven now with the minyan without tefillin, you're going to be testifying falsely. So why don't you just daven now and say Shema again with tefillin later on? Anyway, so the answer is because here, again, this is where you're officially davening. So the official, over there, you're just doing it earlier to say the Shema, and you don't have to have the tefillin because during davening you're going to be wearing tefillin. But to do it to the extent that you're actually davening and without tefillin, that's more of an issue. And there, the halacha is you're better off davening without tefillin and waiting on. I'm sorry, not davening without tefillin. Waiting to daven until later when you have the tefillin, and even though it's going to mean that you're not going to be davening with the minyan. That's for sure. But we're talking about even the davening with tzibur that you're going to be missing. Better skip it, and when you have the tefillin, do the davening. You're davening as opposed to you just saying the Shema. So when you're davening, you should have the tefillin on. Otherwise, that is considered Meyed Eidu Sheker. So again, that's why it's important to be careful. Although we know the concept, you have to have tefillin on when you say Shema because it's Meyed Eidu Sheker, but you need to know that there are differences. Sometimes yeah, and sometimes no. It isn't a rule that we apply all the time. That's why it's important to learn the halachas very specifically to know that sometimes this rule applies and sometimes it doesn't. Because there's obviously a little bit of a difference, and that makes the difference. Well, why would you daven b'yachid before you have the tefillin? If there's no alternative, there's no alternative. We're talking about where there is an alternative. If there's no alternative, it's a different story. You know, there's an expression. You know, we ask an issue, what should I do under certain circumstances? So the Gemara says, if you don't have what to do it with, what's the question? You don't have it. The question is, if you have it and you're asking, should I do it or shouldn't I do it? Well, so that's it. Technically, you shouldn't be doing that because you're really after this man tefillah. There's actually another solution there, which is an important thing to keep in mind. Also, the halacha is really, if you're waiting till later and you don't want to wait till later because you're going to miss this man of tefillah, so you're going to end up davening without tefillin, and you're going to be putting on tefillin later just to say the Shema. So there is, in Shulchan Aruch, it's brought down that what you really should do is daven mincha with tefillin. So you're davening a tefillah with tefillin. And the reality is that is what we do. We do it on Tisha B'Av. We can't put on tefillin in the morning. So you can't put it in the morning. So put it later on. What do you have? All of a sudden, we're going to put on tefillin for mincha? We never put on tefillin for mincha. Well, the answer is because we couldn't put it on for shachris. And the time to put on tefillin is for davening. So we can't do it for shachris. So we wear it for mincha. We don't just put it on and make a bracha and say Shema and take it off. Right. And then again, if you didn't daven with tefillin for whatever reason, and you got your tefillin later, and you're putting it on to say Shema, but if you can at that point, daven mincha with it. So if you ever walk into shul and you see somebody davening mincha with tefillin, the assumption is, the assumption is that he, for whatever reason, didn't daven shachris with tefillin, and now he's putting on his tefillin, so he's davening mincha. If somebody's concerned that by the time he gets his tefillin, Yabit is man Kriya Shema, this man Kriya Shema will pass. So then Yikra Kriya Shema L'Loi Tefillin. What you do is you say Kriya Shema L'Loi Tefillin. And similarly, so if you feel that by the time we said we should wait until you have the tefillin to daven, but if by the time you get your tefillin, you pass this man tefillah, you don't want to do that either. So then Yispalel L'Loi Tefillin, or La'achar Mikein K'shiyavei L'Yadei Tefillin, Yanichon v'Yispalel Behen Es Tefillas HaMincha, Oy Yikra Behen Mizmer Kol Shehu, or at least do another tefillah with it, not just the Shema. So it gives it more of a chshivos, although you didn't do the full davening with it because you couldn't, but you did something else with it. Tefillin she'ulin v'shimush b'tefillin l'lo rishus l'florashes. Next halacha is, there's a special halacha about wearing somebody else's talis. We're not going to get into it right now, but now we're going to get into the halacha about tefillin. Tefillin she'ulin. If you don't have your own tefillin and you want to borrow a pair of tefillin, what's the halacha? Is it a problem? Is it not a problem? Do you have to have permission? Could you just go to his locker and take the pair of tefillin? What's the halacha? A person can fulfill the mitzvah with a borrowed pair of tefillin. It doesn't have to be sholcha. It's not the kachtum lachem that you have to have like by the daled minim. It has to be yours. With tefillin, it doesn't say it has to be sholcha. So you can be yoytze with tefillin she'ulin, with borrowed tefillin. And you're allowed to, so you can make a bracha on it, not a problem. The halacha is even that if you walk into shul and there's a pair, you don't have your tefillin and there's a pair of tefillin, you're allowed to use your friend's tefillin, even without his knowledge of it, providing that what? So, on condition, with the following conditions. Why can you use somebody else's tefillin even without permission? And the answer is because there's a rule that a person appreciates that somebody has the ability to fulfill a mitzvah with something that I own. So we assume you're going to be happy. Somebody else is going to use your tefillin, no problem. I'm not going to have an issue with it. And since we know that, so not a problem, and you can make a bracha. Kasher shimush zeh, but this is providing that ka'asher shimush zeh einoi goyrem loy chisaron kis hefsed kaspi. This is all providing when you're using somebody else's film, but you're not going to mess up the film. If you're going to use somebody else's film and you're going to bang up the film, nobody wants you to do that. Nobody has a problem if somebody else uses your film. As a matter of fact, they appreciate the fact that your film were able to be used for a mitzvah, providing that you keep it in the same shape. And furthermore, we'll get to that in a minute. That's also, generally speaking, that we assume that a person wants another person to be able to use his film. So that's bistam when we don't know otherwise. We don't know that this person has a problem with it, so we assume he doesn't have a problem with it, because generally speaking, people don't have a problem. They have certain people that leave my tefillin alone. I don't want you touching my tefillin. I'm very careful. You're going to bang it. You're going to this. You're going to that. And I don't want anybody using my tefillin. I've known people like that they specifically always have a second pair of tefillin with them. Somebody wants a pair of tefillin. Don't use my tefillin. I have a special pair of tefillin for you to use if you want. So if we know that the person does not want you to use it, then you shouldn't use it. Also, you're not allowed to take it without permission. Okay. You have what? Whatever it is. So some people feel they have such holy machshavas and the other guy's going to have less. And most people feel the holy machshavas, I have the same, the other guy has the same holy machshavas. We don't assume the other guy is going to have unholy machshavas. Now here are further conditions to be able to use somebody else's tefillin. So we mentioned some, but in addition to them, it's kishahashimush b'tefillin hainu b'derech mikra ve'einu mishtamish b'kvias. You, on occasion, you came to shul, you forgot your tefillin, so you used somebody else's tefillin. But if on a regular basis you come to shul for the second minyan and you go to somebody's locker and you use his tefillin every day, so doing it every day, that's already going beyond the norm. On occasion, people have no problem. But for you to decide every day you're going to use my tefillin, that is not an acceptable thing. Number two, also, the tefillin are here, and you decide, you know what, you're going to come into shul, take a pair of tefillin, and take it to another shul to catch the minyan. That you're not allowed to do. You're allowed to leave the tefillin here and put them on, but you take it somewhere else, you have to get permission. And gam in miskainu lachziru limkaimam. This is even if you say, I'm going to bring it right back to the locker. But if you're taking it out from the place that the tefillin are, for that you need special permission. And number three, kishimachziron kimay shahayu. That you need to return the tefillin in the same way that they were. Which means, so that the person, the owner of the tefillin, shouldn't have an issue with it. Such as, if you found a pair of tefillin that were wrapped up, wrap them up too. Don't say, I left him the tefillin, I didn't get a chance to wrap it up, he's going to use it tomorrow, let him wrap it up. That you're not allowed to do. Here we say, different people wrap it up differently. So if you don't know exactly how the other guy wraps it up, as long as it's wrapped up, that's important. Again, providing that it happens on occasion. But if you're going to every day take his tefillin and he puts it together in one particular way, and every day you take it and you put it together in a different way, that's again something that's obviously not acceptable. That too, you should. That's also part of. It has to be put back in the right place. Tefillin in the right place, and the shol yad and shalosh in the right place. Kola Amor, all of the above, Hainu b'mikra she'en abaylim nimtzoyim sham. All of the above, whether you can or you can't, or how you should do it, which way you should do it, and sometimes you can assume it's not a problem. That's all providing that the owners of the tefillin are not around. So you don't know, and the question is, can I, can't I? So here's the rules. But if the owner of the tefillin is around, if the owners are there, then clearly the halacha is you can't just walk over and use it. You have to ask permission before you just walk over and use somebody else's tefillin, because they are his. You could assume, if there's no alternative and he's not here under the circumstances that we described, that most of the time it's not a problem. But if the person is here, the way to do it is to actually ask and see if he's okay. And we assume that most likely the person is going to be okay, providing that you take care of it in the way that we described. Okay.
That shows up in the concept.
Very good. Again, that's again part of it. It's happened.